Hey everybody, how is everybody this evening? I hope doing very well. All things considered, gas prices being $4 a gallon, I hope everyone's doing pretty good. I'm curious about something. When people talk about how well they know somebody, there are many different categories. The first category is you know of someone. What that means is that you might know someone's name or you might know of them. For example, everyone knows the name Donald J. Trump. Everyone knows the name Joe Biden. Everyone knows the name Tom Cruise. Everyone knows the name Mark Harmon. These are all famous people. Everybody knows who Robin Williams was, or at least I hope you do. Things of that nature. That's knowing of somebody. To know something about them, well, you would know that Donald Trump was a president and that Joe Biden is what they call the president. Um, Tom Cruise is an actor, and Mark Harmon plays Leroy Jethro Gibbs on NCIS, though he's had various other roles, and so forth. That's knowing about the person. You might even go as far as what information you've actually read about these people, like where they went to college and got their educations and so forth. That's knowing about someone. But do you actually know these people? You see, when you talk to a Christian and you ask them, you say, "Do you know my friend Jesus?" "Oh, well, yeah, I know him." "Do you?" "Okay." I'll give you an example. If you know of Jesus, then number one, you know his name. You know that he was born the Son of God and he's called the Son of Man. And you know that his earthly parents were Mary and Joseph, the Virgin Mary. And you might know a few other things of him, that he was a Galilean and so forth. To know about Jesus, well, then you would know that he had 12 disciples. You would know that he worked as a carpenter. You would know that he lived a perfect life, that he preached the gospel to the people, that he did so many miracles that one book could not contain everything that he done. He cast out demons. He raised Lazarus from the dead. He healed the blind, cured lame people, corrected people in their stories and understandings of the laws of Moses, and corrected their errors, which many did not accept. And you know that he was tortured and beaten and ridiculed, and that he died on the cross for our sins. And he did all this so that many sins would be forgiven. That's knowing about Jesus. But do you actually know him? Well, then answer this question, or these questions. What was Jesus' favorite color? What was his favorite food? What was Jesus Christ's real occupation, his professional occupation? What about what were his thoughts about the differences in people? In other words, you pose a question. if a man were fighting another man and Jesus walked up, what would Jesus say or do to them? You see, if you have difficulty with these questions, and here's a really good one. Would Jesus talk about sexual immorality? Would he even talk about sex, period? There's a real good topic right there. Would Jesus talk about sex? Well, if you think you know Jesus, then you would know the answer to at least a big portion of these. For me, I believe I know something about Jesus. I don't believe I know him up close and personal, but I believe the first question I ask is, what was Jesus' favorite color? And I believe that Jesus did not partiate between anything, that they were all beautiful in their own ways to him, that he did not place one color above another to distinguish a superiority. The same thing for food. He did not distinguish one food greater than the other. However, knowing the gospel, there is one food that did stand out above all other foods. Not saying that it was his favorite food or that it was something that he placed above others, but knowing the gospel that Jesus spoke of, you know Jesus was the bread of life. And you also know that many times it had mentioned about Jesus breaking bread. For example, when Jesus fed thousands with a few loaves of bread and some fish, he broke the bread there. But the most important one was at the Last Supper, when Jesus broke the bread, blessed it, and then gave it to the disciples and said, "Take this and eat, for this is my body." You see? So, not saying that bread was his favorite food. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying that it was distinguished. He didn't say, "Take this carrot and eat of this carrot." He did not say, "Take this tomato and eat of this tomato." He did not say, "Take this ear of corn and eat of this ear of corn." He said, "Take this bread and eat, for this is my body." You see, Jesus never split a banana. He never split an apple or anything else. It was bread that he distinguished. And he did also mention fish. Another question is, I asked you, what was Jesus's profession? Now, many of you know from your readings that Jesus was a carpenter. That is very true according to the scriptures. He was a carpenter in his youth until the time came for him to do his Father's work. But let me show you proof that that was not his overall profession. Go into Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Not so much in John, not that I'm segregating John out of the life and times of Jesus, but the book of John had a much different point of view than the other three. All are still important, but for this conversation, it's more important to focus on Matthew, Mark, and Luke, mainly Matthew. When Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist, and they had talked, some of the things that were said is that Jesus told John that he would know his and they would know him. And after they had finished talking, Jesus departed and started his journey. The first disciple that he met was Peter. Peter, and I believe it was James and John. Now, if I'm wrong, then I apologize, but I believe the other two disciples that were there were James and John. But I know for sure Peter definitely was there. And Jesus spoke to them. And Peter told Jesus that they were fishermen. And Jesus replied to them, "Come, I will make you fishers of men." Now, you can go back and read the scriptures and get every detail of every bit of that. But the key focus right there is Jesus' reply to Peter. "Come with me, and I will make you fishers of men." If you have not figured out what Jesus' main profession was at this time, you never will figure it out. Jesus was a fisherman, only he wasn't fishing for fish. He was fishing for souls. And he called Peter and his other disciples that he gathered along his travels to assist him in fishing for those souls, because that was his profession. He was a fisherman of souls for God. Now, if you doubt that, go back and reread all of that, especially that part where Jesus met Peter for the first time. If Jesus were a carpenter, why didn't he say, "Come, and I will make you gatherers of lumber," or nailer of boards, or, I don't know, sawer of trees? It could have been anything. But Jesus called them from their own profession and said, "I'll make you fishers of men," which means Jesus was a fisherman. Was he not fishing for our souls? Yes. And he still is to this very day. His gospel is out there in the water along with Satan's gospel. And Satan's gospel, well, for those of you who know how to fish, let's take a look at the lures used, okay? I like to sum it up for Jesus by simply saying that on Jesus' hook is used toilet paper. Now, if you want to go, "Well, that just ain't true and that just absolutely ain't," okay, let me show you what's really on the hook. Persecution, poverty, mockery, belittlement, crucifixion. These are the lures on Jesus' hook. I think the term used toilet paper kind of makes it a little bit easier to swallow, don't you? Because when you look at all those other things that are out there, there ain't nobody interested in that except the ones that truly want Christ. Let's take a look at the lures that Satan uses. Gold, silver, money, power, diamonds, fame, fortune, trickery and bedazzlement, showbiz, mansions, cars, trips, islands, politics. Boy, that is some worm Satan's got over there. The problem is those lures dissolve. They look good right now, but they dissolve. The lures that Christ used, they're still there. He hasn't had to change not one single lure. Satan has to revolve to use a diamond for this one, gold for that one, money for this one. fame for this one. To give you an example, check it out. Tom Cruise wants to be an actor. So, fame and fortune. Bill Gates wanted to be a master at computers. Well, he's a billionaire with his computer empire. You see, the diamond versus the gold, the fame versus the fortune. And people like Joe Biden wanted to own lots of property, like Nancy Pelosi and them. They want to own tons of property. Well, that's real estate. There's your mansions. It's a different lure. Each one of these have a significant bedazzlement for the right fish. Would you use a dough ball to catch a bass? No. You use a dough ball to catch a carp and a catfish and a few other things. But if you want to catch a bass, you got to use a crankbait or a minnow or a jig and pork or something of that nature, or even a worm to catch an actual bass. If you wanted to catch a crappie, you have to use a different kind of bait. If you wanted to catch bluegill, or if you wanted to catch a northern pike or whatever, each fish has a different kind of bait that you have to use. And that's how you attract it, by the bait. So that's what Satan has, many lures to lure as many into his false trap, his falsehood, as he can. This earth is going to be destroyed. Now, no man knows exactly when, but it is going to be destroyed, and everything that's in it. Nothing in this world will ever leave this world. If a man has a diamond today, that diamond will still be in this world till the end. If a man has a bar of gold in this world, that bar of gold will still be in this world until its end. The only thing that isn't everlasting is that which is alive. An apple dies, a tree dies, people live and they die. Anything that has life has a time clock. Things like gold and silver and diamonds and sapphires and uranium and oil and all this stuff, it's still going to be here. It's not leaving. You take oil, which is crude, and you turn it into gas, and you burn that gas and it becomes a vapor. Then over time, back into the earth it goes to become crude oil yet again. It's a cycle. It's still going to be here. It's not going anywhere. Jesus' lures are still there. They're the same ones. So when you meet someone that says how well they know Christ, then ask them, just exactly how well do you know him? Do you know his favorite color? Do you know his favorite pastime? Do you know his favorite phrase? Do you know any of these things? You see, when you first met your spouse, whether it be your husband or your wife, all you knew was of them. You knew their name. You might have went to school with them. You might have ran into them working at a video store or something like that. And then you kept talking to them, one flirting with the other. And then as you got to know them a little bit, you got to learn things about them, whether they have decent morals. He's not an axe murderer. He's not a pedophile. He's not a thief. So he's got decent morals. Okay, so now let's go to phase 2. Let's start talking regularly. Let's find out as much about each other as we can. She cleans house and she likes to work, and he's not lazy. He'll hold a job, and etc., etc. And so you take it on to stage 2 and you begin the dating process. And in the dating process, you really start to uncover things about each other. what people like and don't like, what people want to do and what they don't want to do. Then you get to knowing about the individual. You know, what their favorite things are, their favorite colors, their favorite flowers, their favorite place to eat. You know, do they like to sit and cuddle or do they like to watch the Super Bowl game? I mean, everybody has a different fancy. You start learning these things. And as the blocks get check marks, then you start leading your way into marriage. Once you become married, you actually know that person because then you have learned their most intimate secrets. Secrets of the bedroom, secrets that they don't publicize. You know this about them. You know what the do's and don'ts are in the bedroom. You know what the do's and don'ts are in the living room. You know what the do's and don'ts are in the kitchen. You know what the do's and don'ts are when you go to the store or whatever. Everyone has lines and boundaries, and they're clearly marked when two people get together. They know and understand and respect them. This is how you know someone. When you say, I know someone, you better know all of that. To walk up and say, well, I know Jesus. Well, what do you know about Jesus? Do you know of him? Do you know about him? Or do you actually know him? And start laying it down. Lay the questions down to them. You'll find that most of them just know about Jesus. And it's mostly just what they've read. When you build a relationship with Jesus, you are building a relationship with a real person. Jesus is a real person, much like your spouse. Only you can see and touch them. But Jesus, you see and touch here in your heart. You see, he's not walking down the street holding your hand, and you're not swapping spit in McDonald's. You see, Jesus is here. You're interchanging. He's giving you the gospel and correction and direction. You are giving him worship and praise and obedience. You see, that's how it works. So when you meet someone, remember, ask them when they start bragging about how well they know Jesus. You'll find out whether they are actually telling the truth or whether they are lying. If you yourself truly know Jesus, there are things about Jesus that only you know in your relationship. And when a situation presents itself to you, you're going to go, Jesus would handle that situation like this. I'm very confident of that. There will be some that you'll go, well, I'm not sure how Jesus will handle that. I'm not that close to him. That's when you pray to him about it and get an answer. And that's how you get closer to him, is to pray for the answers that you don't know or that you haven't learned. And you get closer and closer and closer. That's how this works. And in order to get to God, the same thing goes with God. Only nobody is ever going to really know God. There are some things that you can rest assured that you will definitely know about God, but everybody's going to know these things about God. You're going to know that God won't lie to you. You're going to know that. You're going to know that God won't deceive you. You're going to know that God won't do evil. Notice I'm using the word won't. I didn't say can't. I said won't. There's a difference, and I did a video, the difference between can and will. Cannot and won't. There's a difference between these two. You need to watch that video. But God will not sin. He won't do it. And you know You can know this. He just won't do it. You know, people don't understand. They say God is very complex, and he is. But some things you can figure out. People sit back and say, well, you claim that God don't do no evil. Well, God turned the Nile red with blood according to Exodus in the book of Moses. And one of them books of Moses is right there in Exodus. He turned the Nile red with blood. Now, wait a second. You're calling that an evil act. Let's take a look at that real quick. God does not do evil, number one. And to prove to you that was not an evil act, let's take a look at why that happened. See, the Lord sent Moses in to tell Pharaoh to turn his people loose so that they could come to the wilderness and worship him and serve him and make a sacrifice unto him. That's what was supposed to be done, but the Pharaoh would not. He just said, I ain't doing it. So God began showing him why he needed to. See, Pharaohs back then thought they were gods. They thought that they could do all these things. So God wanted to show him, you ain't nothing but a man. I'm going to show you what I can do. Well, you make my people go thirsty. You beat my people with a whip. You do this and you do that. I'm going to turn this Nile red with blood. You're going to go 7 days without something to drink. People go, well, that's just cruel to make people die of thirst like that. Is it? Is it just cruel? It's called equal punishment for failure to obey the Lord God, because how many of God's people died of thirst because the Egyptians were cold-hearted and cruel? And they beat them with whips and denied them food and denied them water. How many of them suffered like that? And you call 7 days severe suffering and evil and cruel? Wrong answer. That's not how God works. God punished the Egyptians for not complying with his commandment. The same thing with the other plagues. There was 10 plagues unleashed on Egypt. And each time a plague was unleashed on Egypt, the Pharaoh called to Moses and said, entreat your Lord, I have sinned in his eyes, and take this away and I'll let you go. And then when it come time to let the people go, I can't let them go. You see. So now who was doing evil? It wasn't God. God sent him to get him to let the people go, and the Pharaoh promised to do it, so God rescinded his plague. And guess what? Oh, no, I ain't gonna let him go. So, well, the Lord sent another plague in. You see? That's not doing evil. That is righteous. God does not do evil. He won't. You may think it's evil, but you better stop and look at what you are doing to cause him to do these things. You see? You know, we are the ones making our own calamities. The Lord our God is merciful and forgiving. He sacrificed his own son to prove this. He paid a price that none of us can pay. He paid a debt that none of us could ever erase. And we need to start getting to know Jesus, because he is the bridge to God. And just knowing of him and just knowing about him is not enough. You need to get up close and personal with him. Become a part of him and let him become a part of you. If you do that, all things will become possible. God bless you.